That's business. Comments, anyone? All right.
Have you received that whole list from him? Have you,
I've not seen the list, no.
have you made those formal complaints, or is that just your list? Have you
Formal
submitted that to
complaints.
anybody?
Formal complaints.
Those were all formal complaints?
Yes.
Okay. So Frank probably has that?
I have one here from June 24th, but I don't have the list.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple of meetings ago, before the meeting where I wasn't allowed to speak, I did talk to Mr. Karen. In fact, I called Mr. Karen regarding the opening on Saturday mornings for 1 month prior to signing the new agreement with the town council. 1 month prior. And I called Mr. Karen 1 week or on a Tuesday, about 5 days before the meeting of May 5th. And I told him what was going on. When I came to that meeting on May 5th, I asked Mr. Karen, I said, did you check on my complaints? He said, yes. He looked at me. He says, yes, they are illegal. But I heard nothing because it wasn't witnessed, I guess. They're illegal. But I heard nothing. It's just funny that every time I call the police, it's verified. I'm not lying, okay? It's verified when the police are there. Everything else must be, I don't know, misinformation. I also made a comment to Mr. Brown that on May 4th, a Sunday, he was open for at least an hour and a half because we came in, my wife and I drove up, the gate was open, there was a truck there, things were open, and we were home for at least an hour and a half before the gate closed. Comments?
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Yeah, just to go back, just to make sure that I heard what I heard. On the previous two incidences, June 10th and July 8th, which were calling the police about operating outside of the hours that were agreed to.
Yes.
The first incident, a summons was issued per the statute for 275, and was it paid? I don't know if you know, Dave, it was paid or not.
First one was paid this
Okay.
week.
And then the second one, Dave is saying a summons has been issued at the higher penalty, which per the statute is $550. So in those two instances, not that you should, look favorably on having to make the call and have the police come out and confirm, but in those two instances, it looks like enforcement action was taken, and it did follow what we asked to be followed. In other words, if any failure to comply with any of these conditions, condition 5 is the hours of operations, is subject to 670-617, which is fines. So in those two cases, the process worked, but even though you had to make the call yourself, it worked. I just want to establish that under the guidelines that we have, in those two instances, the call and the seeing it happened resulted in a fine, and that's the way it's supposed to work per this agreement we have. And then the last sentence in the agreement says that we can then consider these types of things during the licensing period when we're determining the renewal. So that, and I'm getting a cart before the horse, but from my perspective, that's exactly what I wanted to see, that come next March, we'll have documented evidence of these types of things, and it'll be something that we're supposed to, we may consider during the licensing renewal. So I
Thank
just
you.
wanted to kind of make sure I heard
Yeah,
that correctly
thank
for
you.
those two instances.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think that follows too with what we've heard in the past, is that there have not been a substantial number of documented instances where the court levied a fine, where there was a guilty plea, where there was a fine paid. So there was no trend available through an evidentiary type of record. And what we're seeing now is the creation of that record that we are supposed to look at come licensing time. So your efforts and the verification efforts and those things, I'm assuming from what I see, are going to continue. And we'll be back here looking at all this again next March.
That was going to be my next comment, because I just keep coming back for the same thing over. So that establishes also a trend on the part of the owner, because he's not been held to the fire. That he'll, less than a month, do the same thing, and then 2 days later, still break the law by creating a disturbance in my neighborhood. Recently also, there is construction obviously taking place on his post. He has a sign post with a number 55 on it. There's been a new sign added. Now, it belongs to the construction company, I believe. Now, we have a court order saying no signage whatsoever. I got an email back from Frank referring to a regulation, such and such, such and such. However, I believe the court order supersedes that regulation. There is no signage to be put up. So that should come down. I have pictures of that. So,
The
So I hope
construction
you'll,
company put up the sign?
what?
The construction company put up the sign?
They put it on top of the 55 posts that he has out there. He
It's
has a
one
sign.
of their like little
Yes.
advertising kind of signs?
Yes. Recently, this picture was taken Monday. I called Frank regarding vehicles over the fence. He came, took pictures, sent me an email, and said it was unfounded. So here are two unfounded pictures. If you'd like to look at those, you can too. Dated. Monday. One more thing. I can find it. Anyway, I can paraphrase. I have a stack of things from Frank, basically telling me that I have misinformed the council or misquoted. I've done this, I've done that, all to the negative. And then when I sent him the situation about the most recent violations, and he told me that the owner of that property was going to be fined at the double rate, Frank all of a sudden became my buddy. I don't know how that happened, but he says, this is where we've been trying to get to. It took a long time. So I'm here just to let you know that no matter what you're told by the opposition, it's not always fact. By the way, I do have some other documentation about certain things, and should it come up during the course of the owner's testimony to you, I'll raise my hand. If you want to recognize me, you can. I'll only do it if it's documented and if I have it. Basically, I'm done.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else? That's it? Okay,
Oh, may I say one more thing?
please.
Just occurred to me. This is in relationship to this. It's not apart from this. I have a neighbor, and you know him, Mr. Belinsky, who supported me in all this. And without his help, I probably wouldn't have gotten where I've gotten. And I find it a little unnerving that there was a situation that occurred regarding him that seemed almost vengeful. Mr. Dudek made a phone call, not documented, to Mr. Holsworth regarding something that was happening on Mr. Belinsky's property, and Mr. Belinsky got a nasty letter from the town attorney, I guess, on David Karen's initiative, and it just sounds vengeful to me.